The moment I walked into the grand ballroom of the Riverside Manor, I knew something was wrong. The crystal chandeliers cast their warm glow across perfectly arranged tables draped in ivory silk, each centerpiece a masterpiece of white roses and baby's breath. My sister Rebecca's dream wedding had materialized exactly as she'd envisioned during our countless planning conversations over the past 18 months. Yet the knot forming in my stomach had nothing to do with the elegance surrounding me and everything to do with the seating chart I'd just glimpsed near the entrance. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. I am Jane Morrison, and this is the story of how one humiliating moment at my sister's wedding revealed family dynamics I'd been blind to for years, ultimately leading to consequences none of them could have anticipated. At 32 years old, I had spent the better part of a decade building what I believed were strong family relationships, while maintaining the careful balance required by my actual profession, one that demanded absolute discretion and had shaped every aspect of my adult life in ways my family never understood. The Riverside Manor represented Rebecca's vision of perfection, a historic estate nestled along the Hudson River, where New York's elite had celebrated milestone events for over a century. The venue selection reflected her determination to create a wedding that would establish her social position within her new husband's affluent circle. Thomas Whitfield came from old money, the kind of generational wealth that opened doors and created expectations about lifestyle and social connections that Rebecca was eager to embrace. The guest list included prominent business leaders, political figures, and social influencers who represented the kind of network Rebecca hoped to join through her marriage to Thomas. The wedding planning had consumed her attention for months as she orchestrated every detail to ensure the celebration would reflect the sophisticated elegance that Thomas's family expected from such occasions. I had watched Rebecca's transformation during her engagement with a mixture of admiration and concern. The sister who had once shared late-night conversations about our dreams and aspirations had gradually become someone who measured success through social status and material achievements. Her conversations increasingly focused on designer labels, exclusive events, and the social connections that would elevate her position within Thomas's world. The shift in Rebecca's priorities had created subtle changes in our relationship, though I had attributed them to the natural stress of wedding planning and the adjustments required when building a life with someone from a dramatically different background. The Morrison family had always been middle-class, hard-working people who valued education and integrity over wealth and social position. Rebecca's engagement to Thomas represented an opportunity for advancement that our parents viewed with pride and excitement. My own career path had taken me in directions that created distance from traditional family expectations, though none of them understood the true nature of my work. The cover story I maintained described a position in federal risk assessment that required frequent travel and occasionally demanded my attention during family gatherings. The explanation satisfied their curiosity while protecting the classified reality of my actual responsibilities within the United States government. The truth was that I served as a senior protection specialist within the Secret Service, assigned to the Presidential Protection Division with security clearances that granted access to information most people never imagined existed. My career had evolved through rigorous training, exceptional performance evaluations, and the kind of strategic thinking that had earned recognition from supervisors who understood the complexities of modern security challenges. The work required maintaining multiple operational identities, conducting threat assessments that could affect national security, and coordinating protection details for individuals whose safety represented critical government interests. The responsibilities extended far beyond the traditional image of Secret Service agents standing near political figures, encompassing intelligence analysis, strategic planning, and operational coordination that influenced policy decisions at the highest levels of government. The position had provided me with access to resources, information networks, and professional relationships that spanned federal agencies, international security organizations, and private sector partnerships that supported national security objectives. The clearance levels I possessed granted insight into geopolitical developments, economic intelligence, and strategic initiatives that remained classified from public knowledge. But the most significant aspect of my professional life was the careful compartmentalization required to maintain operational security while preserving personal relationships with family members who could never be told the complete truth about my work. The cover story I maintained with Rebecca and our parents represented a simplified version of reality that protected both my operational effectiveness and their safety from potential security threats. The challenge of living with classified responsibilities while maintaining normal family relationships had shaped my approach to personal interactions for years. I had learned to navigate conversations about my work with careful precision, sharing enough information to satisfy curiosity while avoiding details that could compromise security protocols or create dangerous knowledge that could affect their safety. The wedding planning process had highlighted these communication challenges as Rebecca repeatedly asked about my work schedule, travel requirements, and availability for various pre-wedding events. My responses required careful balance between maintaining family relationships and protecting operational security that she couldn't understand without compromising classified information. As I approached the seating chart display, scanning the elegant calligraphy that designated table assignments for each guest, I felt the familiar tension that accompanied any situation where my professional and personal lives intersected. The wedding represented a significant family milestone that demanded my presence despite the operational challenges it created for maintaining my cover identity. The seating arrangement revealed Rebecca's social priorities with crystal clarity. Table 1 featured Thomas's family, his parents, grandparents, and prominent relatives whose presence elevated the social significance of the celebration. Table 2 included Thomas's business associates and their spouses, successful professionals whose connections could benefit the couple's future networking objectives. Tables 3 through 6 accommodated Rebecca's college friends, our parents' social circle, and distant relatives whose inclusion reflected family obligations rather than genuine closeness. The arrangement demonstrated careful attention to social hierarchies and relationship dynamics that would maximize networking opportunities, while honoring traditional family expectations. Table 7 was positioned near the kitchen entrance, designated for children and their immediate supervision. The location reflected practical considerations about noise management and service efficiency, rather than social recognition. The adults assigned to this table included a teenage cousin responsible for entertaining younger relatives and the elderly aunt who traditionally supervised family children during formal events. And there, written in the same elegant script as every other assignment, was my name. Jane Morrison, Table 7. The realization struck me with unexpected force. After 32 years of family relationships, countless shared experiences, and what I had believed was genuine closeness with my sister, Rebecca had categorized me alongside children who required supervision, rather than recognizing me as an accomplished adult who deserved inclusion among her peers. The seating assignment represented more than simple logistics or space constraints. Rebecca had made deliberate choices about how to position each guest within the social hierarchy of her wedding celebration. The placement communicated her assessment of my importance within her new life and her perception of my status relative to the other relationships she valued. The message was unmistakable. Despite our shared history and family bond, Rebecca viewed me as someone whose presence was obligatory rather than meaningful, someone who could be accommodated with minimal consideration rather than honored as an important family member deserving thoughtful placement among accomplished adults. The positioning near the kitchen entrance ensured that my presence would be largely invisible to the prominent guests whose opinions mattered to Rebecca's social ambitions. The assignment relegated me to the periphery of her celebration, physically, and symbolically separated from the relationships she considered valuable for her future. As I stood there processing the implications of this deliberate slight, other family members began arriving for the ceremony. I watched my parents greet Thomas's relatives with the kind of nervous enthusiasm that reflected their awareness of the social gap they were attempting to bridge through polite conversation and respectful deference. My mother wore the navy dress she had purchased specifically for this occasion, chosen after numerous shopping trips and careful consideration of what would be appropriate for such an elegant venue. My father had invested in a new suit, recognizing that this celebration demanded his best effort to make a positive impression on Thomas's family and their distinguished guests. Their behavior reflected genuine pride in Rebecca's achievement while acknowledging the social dynamics that position them as grateful outsiders being welcomed into a more prestigious circle. They had raised Rebecca to pursue opportunities that would exceed their own achievements, and her marriage to Thomas represented the fulfillment of aspirations they had nurtured throughout her education and career development. Rebecca appeared, radiant as she moved through the pre-ceremony preparations, her designer wedding gown reflecting the kind of investment that demonstrated serious commitment to creating a memorable celebration. She had worked with professional stylists to achieve a look that would photograph beautifully while meeting the expectations of guests who were accustomed to high-end fashion and sophisticated aesthetics. The transformation was remarkable. The sister I had grown up with had evolved into someone who navigated social interactions with practiced grace, making conversation with Thomas's relatives and business associates as though she had always belonged in their exclusive circles. The months of preparation had taught her the subtle protocols and cultural references that would enable her integration into their established social network. But as I observed her interactions with various family members, I began noticing patterns that revealed how her priorities had shifted during the engagement period. She spent considerable time with Thomas's family and their important guests, engaging in animated conversations that demonstrated her genuine interest in building relationships that could benefit her future social position. Her interactions with our own family members were markedly different, polite but brief, characterized by the kind of obligatory attention that fulfilled family expectations without investing significant emotional energy. She seemed to be managing our presence rather than celebrating our participation in her important milestone. The realization that I had been relegated to the children's table began connecting with other subtle indicators I had dismissed during the wedding planning process. Phone calls that were returned days later with brief explanations about busy schedules. Invitations to pre-wedding events that were extended with less enthusiasm than those offered to Thomas's friends. Conversations about my work that were redirected toward topics that interested her more. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. The pattern suggested that Rebecca's assessment of my importance had been declining as her engagement progressed and her social priorities evolved. The woman who had once considered me her closest confidant had gradually repositioned me as someone whose presence was tolerated rather than valued. Standing in that elegant ballroom, surrounded by the trappings of Rebecca's social ambitions, I experienced a profound recalibration of my understanding about family relationships and the assumptions I had maintained about my sister's respect for my achievements and character. The seating assignment represented a public declaration of how she viewed my worth relative to the other relationships in her life. The irony was not lost on me. While Rebecca was categorizing me as someone who belonged with children rather than accomplished adults, I was carrying the weight of responsibilities that affected national security and required the kind of strategic thinking that few people ever developed. The clearance levels I possessed granted access to information that could influence international relations and domestic policy decisions. The professional recognition I had earned through years of exemplary service included commendations from supervisors who understood the complexity of modern security challenges and the analytical capabilities required for strategic threat assessment. My expertise was valued by colleagues who operated at the highest levels of government and understood the critical importance of the work we performed. But none of this recognition translated into family understanding or respect, because the nature of my work required maintaining operational security that prevented me from sharing the reality of my professional achievements. The cover story I maintained protected both my effectiveness and their safety, but it also created the impression that my career was less significant than the reality. As I stood there absorbing the implications of Rebecca's seating decision, I felt something shifting inside me, a recognition that the careful balance I had maintained between family relationships and professional responsibilities had been built on assumptions about mutual respect and understanding that apparently didn't exist. The woman my family saw as someone who could be relegated to supervising children at family events was actually someone whose professional capabilities and security access provided resources they couldn't imagine. The quiet competence I had maintained through years of classified work had been interpreted as lack of ambition rather than deliberate discretion. The realization created an opportunity to reconsider the constraints I had accepted in order to maintain family harmony while protecting operational security. Perhaps it was time for my sister and her new social circle to understand that their assumptions about my significance had been profoundly mistaken. The wedding ceremony was scheduled to begin in 30 minutes, providing me with time to process this revelation and consider how to respond to such deliberate disrespect. The professional training that had taught me to assess complex situations and develop strategic responses was beginning to activate, analyzing the dynamics at play and identifying potential courses of action. Rebecca had made a calculated decision about my worth within her new social hierarchy. The positioning near the children's table represented her assessment that I was someone whose presence could be managed rather than celebrated, someone who would accept such treatment without consequence. She was about to discover how significantly she had underestimated the person she thought she knew so well. The quiet sister who had always prioritized family harmony over personal recognition was actually someone whose professional capabilities extended far beyond her comprehension. The elegant ballroom with its crystal chandeliers and perfectly arranged tables would soon become the setting for an education about respect, consequences, and the dangers of making assumptions about people whose true capabilities remained carefully hidden beneath surface appearances. As other guests began taking their assigned seats and the ceremony preparations reached their final stages, I made my way toward table 7 with the composed demeanor that had served me well in countless high-pressure situations. The training that had prepared me for protecting national security figures would now be applied to addressing a family dynamic that had revealed itself with painful clarity. The children and elderly aunt assigned to my table greeted me with genuine warmth, their innocent conversation providing a stark contrast to the social maneuvering that characterized interactions among the more prominent guests. Their presence served as a reminder that Rebecca's seating arrangement had been designed to minimize my visibility rather than accommodate practical considerations about my preferences or comfort. As I settled into my designated chair, positioned to observe the ceremony while remaining physically separated from the relationships Rebecca considered meaningful, I began considering the resources at my disposal for addressing this situation. The professional network I had developed through years of classified work included individuals whose influence extended throughout government, business, and social circles that Rebecca was eager to join. The security clearances I possessed provided access to information about economic trends, political developments, and strategic initiatives that could affect the kind of social and business relationships that Thomas's family valued. The analytical capabilities I had developed through threat assessment work could be applied to understanding the vulnerabilities and dependencies that shaped their social positioning. But more importantly, the operational training that had taught me to protect individuals whose safety represented national security interests had also provided expertise in creating consequences for those who threatened or undermined important objectives. The systematic approach to problem-solving that had earned recognition from senior government officials could be adapted to address personal situations that required strategic intervention. The ceremony was about to begin, and Rebecca was about to discover that the sister she had dismissed as insignificant possessed capabilities that would transform her understanding of family dynamics and social positioning in ways she never could have anticipated. The education was about to commence, and the lessons would be memorable. The wedding ceremony proceeded with clockwork precision, each moment orchestrated to reflect the sophisticated elegance that Rebecca and Thomas had envisioned for their special day. From my position at Table 7, I maintained the composed exterior that had been essential throughout my career, while my mind processed the implications of what had just transpired. The professional instincts that had served me well in countless security assessments were now focused on understanding the full scope of family dynamics I had apparently misread for years. As the minister pronounced Rebecca and Thomas husband and wife, I found myself analyzing the situation with the same methodical approach I applied to threat evaluations. The seating arrangement wasn't an isolated incident, but rather a symptom of deeper changes in family relationships that required comprehensive investigation. My training had taught me that surface indicators often revealed underlying patterns that demanded systematic analysis to understand completely. During the cocktail hour that followed the ceremony, I began what would become the most thorough investigation of my personal life. The skills that had earned me recognition within the Secret Service for analytical thinking and information gathering would now be applied to understanding how my own family perceived my worth and contributions to their lives. The first phase involved careful observation of social interactions and conversation patterns that would reveal the true dynamics at play within this elegant celebration. I positioned myself where I could monitor exchanges between family members while remaining inconspicuous among the wedding guests who were focused on networking and socializing with people they considered important for their own objectives. Rebecca's interactions with various family members provided immediate insight into her priorities and the hierarchy she had established within her social structure. She spent considerable time with Thomas's business associates and their wives, engaging in animated discussions about vacation destinations, investment opportunities, and exclusive social events that demonstrated her eagerness to establish herself within their established network. Her conversations with these prominent guests revealed a level of knowledge about luxury brands, cultural events, and social protocols that she had clearly acquired through deliberate study and preparation. Rebecca had transformed herself into someone who could navigate elite social circles with confidence, adapting her communication style and cultural references to match the expectations of Thomas's family and their business connections. The contrast with her interactions involving our own family members was striking. When Thomas's mother introduced Rebecca to a prominent socialite who organized charity events for New York's cultural institutions, Rebecca's engagement was immediate and enthusiastic. She demonstrated detailed knowledge about current exhibitions, fundraising strategies, and the social importance of philanthropic involvement within their community. But when our elderly Aunt Margaret approached Rebecca to congratulate her on the beautiful ceremony, the conversation was brief and superficial. Rebecca offered polite appreciation, while her attention remained focused on more socially significant interactions that could advance her networking objectives. The dismissive behavior suggested that she viewed family relationships as obligations, to be managed rather than connections to be nurtured and celebrated. I began documenting these patterns with the systematic approach that had proven effective in security assessments, where understanding relationship dynamics could affect protection strategies. The observation process revealed that Rebecca's transformation during her engagement had been more comprehensive than I had previously understood. The conversations I overheard between Rebecca and Thomas's friends provided additional evidence of how dramatically her worldview had shifted during their relationship. She spoke knowledgeably about private equity investments, international travel, destinations that required significant financial resources, and educational opportunities for future children that reflected aspirations toward generational wealth and social position. These discussions revealed planning and strategic thinking that extended far beyond typical newlywed conversations about building a life together. Rebecca and Thomas were actively constructing a lifestyle that would establish their position within New York's social elite while distancing themselves from backgrounds that might compromise their upward mobility. The financial implications of their wedding celebration alone suggested resources that exceeded what either of their individual careers could support. The Riverside Manor venue, Catering arrangements, floral designs, and entertainment represented an investment that indicated either substantial family financial support or debt accumulation that reflected their commitment to making the kind of impression that would open doors within exclusive social circles. As I continued my observation throughout the cocktail hour, I noticed that other family members were also experiencing the effects of Rebecca's social priorities. Our parents were engaging with Thomas's relatives with the kind of careful deference that reflected their awareness of the social gap they were attempting to bridge through respectful conversation and genuine interest in building family connections. But their efforts to establish meaningful relationships with Thomas's family were being undermined by Rebecca's behavior, which consistently redirected attention toward the socially prominent guests whose approval she valued more than family harmony. The pattern suggested that she viewed our parents' presence as potentially embarrassing rather than something to be celebrated and integrated into her new social environment. Our cousin David, who had driven 6 hours from Philadelphia to attend the wedding, was similarly marginalized during family conversations that Rebecca dominated with discussions of topics that excluded him from meaningful participation. His attempts to share updates about his successful accounting practice were politely acknowledged, before Rebecca redirected conversations toward subjects that interested the more affluent guests. The systematic nature of these social exclusions revealed deliberate choices rather than accidental oversights. Rebecca had apparently developed a strategy for managing family relationships that minimized their influence on her networking objectives while maintaining the appearance of appropriate family inclusion. This pattern extended to decisions about wedding party roles, pre-wedding event planning, and even photographer priorities that had consistently relegated family members to secondary importance compared to relationships that could advance Rebecca's social position. The investigation revealed that my seating assignment represented the culmination of months of gradual marginalization rather than an isolated incident. As the cocktail hour transitioned into the dinner reception, I expanded my analysis to include the broader social dynamics that were shaping Rebecca's behavior. The guests Thomas's family had invited represented a network of business leaders, cultural influencers, and social figures whose approval could significantly affect the couple's future opportunities within New York's competitive elite circles. The pressure to make positive impressions on these individuals had apparently influenced every aspect of Rebecca's wedding planning, from venue selection to menu choices to entertainment arrangements that demonstrated sophisticated taste and cultural awareness. The celebration was functioning as an audition for acceptance within a social hierarchy that valued exclusivity and cultural refinement above family loyalty or personal authenticity. I began to understand that Rebecca's treatment of family members reflected her assessment of how our presence might affect her credibility with the guests she considered important for her future success. The seating arrangements, conversation priorities, and social attention she allocated suggested that she viewed our family as potential liabilities rather than sources of support and celebration. This realization led to a deeper investigation of the resources and capabilities that Thomas's family possessed, which would help me understand the competitive environment Rebecca was attempting to enter. My security clearance provided access to financial databases and background information that revealed the scope of wealth and influence represented by the wedding guests. Thomas's father, Richard Whitfield, served on the boards of 3 major corporations and had business interests that extended throughout international markets. The family's financial portfolio included real estate holdings, investment partnerships, and business ventures that generated substantial passive income while providing access to exclusive opportunities and social connections. The guest list included individuals whose net worth exceeded $50 million, whose business decisions affected thousands of employees, and whose social influence shaped cultural and political trends throughout the northeastern United States. The network represented the kind of generational wealth and established power that could provide extraordinary opportunities for those who gained acceptance within their exclusive circles. Understanding the stakes involved in Rebecca's social Positioning helped explain the intensity of her efforts to make positive impressions while minimizing potential embarrassment from family members who didn't possess the cultural sophistication or financial resources that characterized Thomas's social circle. But my investigation also revealed vulnerabilities within this exclusive network that suggested opportunities for creating consequences if Rebecca's disrespectful behavior warranted strategic intervention. The business relationships, social dependencies, and reputation management that sustained their influence also created pressure points that could be affected by information or circumstances they couldn't control. My position within the Secret Service had provided exposure to intelligence about business leaders, political figures, and social influencers whose activities sometimes intersected with national security interests. The background investigations, financial monitoring, and relationship mapping that supported protective operations had given me insights into how elite social networks functioned and where they were vulnerable to external pressure. Several guests at Rebecca's wedding had appeared in security briefings related to business activities that required federal oversight or monitoring. Others had social connections to individuals whose activities affected international relations or domestic policy considerations that fell within my professional responsibilities. The information I possessed about their business practices, political relationships, and social vulnerabilities provided potential leverage that could be applied strategically if circumstances warranted intervention to address Rebecca's systematic disrespect of family relationships. As dinner service began and guests settled into their assigned seats, I found myself positioned among the children and elderly aunt with a clear view of the social interactions that would dominate the evening's conversations. The location that Rebecca had chosen to minimize my presence actually provided optimal positioning for continued observation and analysis of the dynamics she was so eager to navigate successfully. The children at my table proved to be delightful companions, whose innocent questions about my work provided opportunities to practice the cover story explanations that had become second nature throughout my career. Their genuine interest in my travel experiences and professional responsibilities created a refreshing contrast to the calculated networking conversations that characterized interactions among the more prominent guests. 8-year-old Emma Whitfield, Thomas's niece, asked thoughtful questions about what it was like to work for the government and whether I enjoyed helping people through my job. Her curiosity was authentic and engaging, demonstrating the kind of genuine human connection that had been largely absent from my interactions with Rebecca throughout the wedding planning process. 10-year-old Michael Morrison, our cousin's son, shared his aspirations for military service and asked for advice about the education and training that would prepare him for a career protecting important people. His enthusiasm and respect for public service provided a stark reminder of the values that had originally motivated my own career choices before family obligations had required me to maintain operational security through cover stories and limited disclosure. The conversations with these young family members reinforced my understanding of the disconnect between my actual professional achievements and the perception that Rebecca and other family members had developed about my significance and contributions. The children treated me with the kind of respect and interest that reflected their appreciation for public service and professional accomplishment, while the adults had relegated me to their supervision because they viewed me as someone whose presence could be managed rather than celebrated. As the dinner courses were served and the formal toasts began, I continued monitoring the social dynamics that would provide insights into Rebecca's strategic thinking and long-term objectives. The speeches delivered by Thomas's family members revealed their expectations about the couple's future involvement in business ventures, social organizations, and philanthropic activities that would establish their position within New York's elite circles. Thomas's father spoke about the importance of building relationships that would last for generations, creating legacies that would benefit future family members while contributing to social and economic development within their community. His comments emphasized values of strategic thinking, long-term planning, and careful relationship management that would enable sustained success within competitive environments. The speech contained subtle messages about expectations for Rebecca's integration into their family structure and social network. Richard Whitfield's emphasis on generational thinking and strategic relationship building suggested that Rebecca's acceptance within their circle would depend on her ability to contribute meaningfully to their collective interests, rather than simply benefiting from their established resources and connections. Rebecca's response to these expectations was evident in her own toast, which demonstrated her understanding of the social protocols and cultural references that would resonate with Thomas's family and their important guests. She spoke eloquently about her commitment to building a life that would honor the traditions and values that had enabled Thomas's family to achieve their position, while contributing her own talents and perspectives to their continued success. Her speech revealed the extent of her preparation for this social integration, incorporating knowledge about their family history, business achievements, and philanthropic commitments that she had clearly acquired through deliberate study and strategic planning. The presentation was polished and sophisticated, demonstrating her determination to meet their expectations while establishing her credibility as someone who could represent their interests effectively within their social and business networks. But the speech also revealed the calculating nature of Rebecca's approach to family relationships and social positioning. Her comments about honoring traditions and contributing to collective success contained no mention of our family's values, sacrifices, or contributions to her personal development. The omission suggested that she viewed her background as something to be transcended rather than integrated into her new identity. As the evening progressed and the dancing began, I observed the continuation of social patterns that confirmed my analysis of Rebecca's priorities and strategic thinking. She spent the majority of her time with Thomas's family and their business associates, engaging in conversations that would advance her networking objectives while maintaining minimal contact with our own family members. The investigation phase was providing a comprehensive understanding of dynamics that had been developing for months beneath the surface of family relationships I had thought were stable and mutually respectful. The evidence suggested that Rebecca's transformation during her engagement had included a systematic reevaluation of family connections based on their potential to advance or hinder her social ambitions. The realization that I had been categorized as someone whose presence required management rather than celebration was part of a broader pattern that affected multiple family relationships and reflected Rebecca's strategic approach to building the kind of life she desired within Thomas's exclusive social circle. But the investigation had also revealed my own advantages and resources that Rebecca had no way of understanding or anticipating. The professional capabilities I had developed through classified work, the security clearances that provided access to sensitive information, and the network of relationships I had built throughout the federal government represented strategic assets that could be applied to addressing her systematic disrespect if circumstances warranted intervention. The quiet sister she had relegated to the children's table possessed capabilities that extended far beyond her comprehension. The education about family dynamics and social consequences was about to commence, and the lessons would be comprehensive and memorable. The Monday morning following Rebecca's wedding marked the beginning of what would become the most methodical and transformative response of my professional career. As I sat in my secure office within the Treasury building, surrounded by the encrypted communications equipment and classified databases that defined my daily work environment, I began developing a strategic framework that would apply the full scope of my federal resources to address systematic family disrespect. My position as Senior Protection Specialist within the Presidential Protection Division had provided access to investigative capabilities, professional networks, and strategic intelligence that extended far beyond conventional law enforcement or private sector resources. The clearance levels I maintained granted authorization to utilize federal databases, analytical tools, and coordination mechanisms that were designed to address threats to national security interests. The irony was not lost on me that these same resources, which Rebecca and her new social circle would never imagine I possessed, could be applied to conducting the most comprehensive background investigation they had ever experienced. The systematic disrespect they had demonstrated would be addressed through methodical analysis and strategic intervention that would reveal vulnerabilities they had never considered. The first priority involved assembling a professional alliance that would provide specialized expertise for addressing the multiple dimensions of this situation. My years within the federal security apparatus had created relationships with analysts, investigators, and strategic planners whose capabilities could be coordinated to achieve objectives that extended beyond simple accountability into areas of genuine consequence and behavioral modification. Agent Marcus Thompson from the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network had developed expertise in analyzing complex financial arrangements and business relationships that supported suspicious activities or created vulnerabilities for federal oversight. His investigative capabilities could provide comprehensive analysis of the business practices and financial structures that supported Thomas's family wealth and social influence. Marcus had earned recognition throughout the Treasury Department for his ability to identify patterns of financial activity that suggested potential violations of federal regulations or created risks for economic security. His analytical frameworks could be applied to understanding how Thomas's family business functions functioned and where they might be vulnerable to enhanced scrutiny or regulatory intervention. The initial consultation with Marcus took place in a secure conference room within the Treasury building, where we could discuss sensitive information without concern about electronic surveillance or unauthorized access. Marcus's analysis of the preliminary information I provided revealed several areas where Thomas's family business activities intersected with federal regulatory oversight and monitoring requirements. Richard Whitfield's corporate board positions included companies that conducted international business transactions requiring federal compliance monitoring and anti-money laundering oversight. The complexity of their financial arrangements created multiple opportunities for enhanced scrutiny that could affect their business operations and social positioning if irregularities or compliance failures were discovered. Marcus's investigation would focus on identifying specific areas where increased federal attention could create pressure and accountability that would demonstrate the consequences of underestimating someone with access to investigative resources they had never anticipated. The financial analysis would also reveal dependencies and vulnerabilities that could be leveraged strategically if circumstances warranted escalated intervention. Agent Sarah Chen from the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division brought expertise in investigating business fraud, corruption, and ethical violations that affected prominent individuals and organizations. Her background included cases involving political figures, corporate executives, and social influencers whose misconduct had created national security implications or violated federal criminal statutes. Sarah's analytical capabilities would provide a comprehensive assessment of Thomas's family business practices and social activities to identify potential areas of criminal liability or ethical violations that could warrant federal investigation. Her experience with high-profile cases had developed a sophisticated understanding of how to coordinate investigative resources while maintaining operational security that protected ongoing inquiries. The consultation with Sarah revealed that several individuals who had attended Rebecca's wedding had appeared in previous FBI investigations related to business activities that raised questions about compliance with federal regulations and ethical standards. The guest list represented a network of relationships that could be analyzed systematically to understand how information and influence flowed through their social circles. Sarah's investigation would focus on mapping the professional relationships and business dependencies that could be affected by enhanced federal scrutiny or criminal investigation. The analysis would also identify specific individuals within Thomas's network who might be vulnerable to pressure that could create cascading effects throughout their social and business environment. Dr. Jennifer Walsh from the State Department's Intelligence and Research Bureau provided expertise in geopolitical analysis and international relationship mapping that could reveal connections between Thomas's family business interests and foreign entities that might require enhanced federal monitoring or security assessment. Jennifer's clearance levels granted access to intelligence databases and analytical resources that could provide comprehensive understanding of international business relationships and potential national security implications that extended beyond domestic regulatory oversight. Her experience with diplomatic security and international threat assessment would enable sophisticated analysis of vulnerabilities and leverage points. The consultation with Jennifer revealed that Richard Whitfield's international business activities included partnerships with entities in countries that required enhanced monitoring due to strategic concerns about technology transfer, economic espionage, and foreign influence operations. The relationships created potential areas for security review that could affect their business operations and international travel privileges. Jennifer's analysis would focus on identifying connections between Thomas's family business interests and foreign entities that might warrant enhanced federal attention or security assessment. The investigation would also reveal how international relationships could be affected by changes in diplomatic policies or security protocols that I could influence through my position within the federal security apparatus. Agent David Rodriguez, from the Secret Service's Investigation Division, brought specialized expertise in threat assessment and protective intelligence that could be applied to analyzing social networks and identifying individuals whose activities might affect security, interests, or warrant enhanced monitoring. David's experience with high-profile protection details had developed a sophisticated understanding of how social relationships and business activities could create security vulnerabilities or opportunities for exploitation by hostile entities. His analytical frameworks could be applied to understanding how Thomas's social network functioned and where it might be vulnerable to disruption or manipulation. The coordination with David would enable comprehensive assessment of the social dynamics and relationship dependencies that could be affected by strategic intervention or enhanced federal attention. His expertise would also provide insights into how information could be leveraged to create consequences that would demonstrate the advantages of maintaining respectful relationships with individuals whose capabilities they had underestimated. The fourth essential component of my professional alliance was Special Agent Lisa Martinez from the Treasury Inspector General's office, whose expertise in compliance monitoring and regulatory enforcement could identify areas where Thomas's family business activities might warrant enhanced oversight or investigation. Lisa's background included cases involving tax compliance, regulatory violations, and business practices that created risks for federal revenue or economic security. Her analytical capabilities could provide comprehensive assessment of potential vulnerabilities and opportunities for legitimate regulatory intervention that would create meaningful consequences for their business operations. The consultation with Lisa revealed multiple areas where Thomas's family business structure included elements that could warrant enhanced federal attention, including offshore financial arrangements, international business partnerships, and domestic investment strategies that required compliance with complex regulatory requirements. Lisa's investigation would focus on identifying specific areas where increased regulatory scrutiny could create pressure and accountability while ensuring that all interventions remained within legitimate federal authority and operational guidelines. The analysis would also reveal how regulatory compliance requirements could be leveraged to create ongoing monitoring and oversight that would ensure sustained accountability. The coordination of these 5 federal expertise areas created a comprehensive, investigative alliance capable of addressing every dimension of Thomas's family business activities and social positioning through legitimate federal channels that they could not anticipate or effectively counter through conventional means. The strategic framework development process also required establishing secure communication protocols and operational security measures that would protect the investigation while ensuring that all activities remained within appropriate federal authority and oversight guidelines. My position within the Presidential Protection Division provided access to classified communication systems that could coordinate complex operations while maintaining security that prevented unauthorized access or disclosure. The investigation would be conducted using established federal procedures for background checks, compliance monitoring, and security assessments that were routine aspects of government oversight, but could be applied systematically to create comprehensive pressure on individuals whose activities warranted enhanced attention. The operational planning also addressed long-term strategic objectives that extended beyond immediate accountability into areas of behavioral modification and relationship education that would ensure lasting consequences for their systematic disrespect of family relationships and social responsibilities. The goal was not simple revenge or harassment, but rather comprehensive education about the consequences of underestimating individuals whose capabilities extended far beyond surface appearances and social assumptions. The intervention would demonstrate that respect and consideration were not optional elements of family relationships, but essential requirements that carried significant consequences when violated. The planning process continued through multiple secure meetings as we developed detailed coordination protocols and investigative strategies that would maximize impact while maintaining operational security and compliance with federal guidelines. The systematic approach reflected the kind of comprehensive planning that had characterized my most successful protection operations throughout my career. Agent Thompson's financial analysis would commence with a comprehensive review of all business entities associated with Richard Whitfield's corporate activities, including international partnerships, investment structures, and compliance histories that could reveal areas warranting enhanced federal oversight or investigation. The financial investigation would also include analysis of charitable organizations, social clubs, and cultural institutions that received financial support from Thomas's family, creating opportunities to understand their social influence and identify relationships that could be affected by enhanced scrutiny or regulatory intervention. Agent Chen's criminal investigation would focus on identifying potential violations of federal statutes related to business fraud, tax compliance, and regulatory violations that could warrant formal investigation or prosecution. The analysis would also map professional relationships and business dependencies that could create cascading effects if federal attention affected key individuals within their network. Dr. Walsh's international analysis would examine foreign business relationships and potential national security implications that might warrant enhanced monitoring or security assessment. The investigation would also identify how international activities could be affected by changes in diplomatic policies or security protocols that could be influenced through appropriate federal channels. Agent Rodriguez's threat assessment would analyze social relationships and communication patterns to identify vulnerabilities and leverage points that could be affected by strategic intervention or enhanced federal attention. The analysis would also provide insights into how information could be disseminated strategically to create consequences throughout their social and business network. Agent Martinez's regulatory compliance investigation would identify specific areas where enhanced federal oversight could create legitimate pressure and accountability that would demonstrate the consequences of their systematic disrespect, while ensuring that all interventions remained within appropriate federal authority. The coordination of these 5 investigative tracks would create comprehensive pressure that addressed every aspect of Thomas's family business activities and social positioning, while demonstrating the strategic capabilities that Rebecca had completely failed to understand or appreciate. As we finalized the investigative framework and coordination protocols, I experienced a profound sense of purpose that extended beyond personal accountability into areas of professional validation and strategic accomplishment. The systematic disrespect that had characterized Rebecca's wedding celebration would be addressed through methodical application of federal resources that would create educational experiences about respect, consequences, and the dangers of underestimating individuals, whose capabilities extended far beyond conventional understanding. The quiet sister, who had been relegated to supervising children, would demonstrate that her professional responsibilities provided access to investigative capabilities and strategic resources that could create comprehensive accountability for systematic disrespect and social manipulation. The professional alliance was established and operational. The investigative framework was developed and coordinated. The strategic objectives were clearly defined and achievable through legitimate federal channels. The comprehensive response was prepared to commence, and they would soon discover the consequences of underestimating someone whose actual capabilities extended far beyond their social assumptions and family dismissiveness. The education about respect, consequences, and strategic capabilities was ready to begin. The lessons would be comprehensive, memorable, and transformative for everyone involved in the systematic disrespect that had characterized Rebecca's approach to family relationships and social positioning. The third week following Rebecca's wedding marked the commencement of strategic implementation, transforming months of careful preparation into decisive federal action that would demonstrate the comprehensive scope of investigative resources available to someone whose capabilities had been systematically underestimated. The professional alliance I had assembled provided the expertise necessary for implementing coordinated responses across multiple federal agencies, creating pressure that would address every dimension of the disrespect I had experienced while positioning me advantageously for long-term family relationship restructuring. The initial phase required precise coordination across 5 distinct federal investigation tracks to ensure that legal scrutiny developed simultaneously rather than sequentially, maximizing impact while minimizing opportunities for Thomas's family to adapt their strategies or implement defensive measures that could limit the effectiveness of my comprehensive response to their systematic dismissiveness and social manipulation. Agent Marcus Thompson initiated the financial crimes investigation with comprehensive analysis of Richard Whitfield's corporate structure and international business arrangements. The Treasury Department's sophisticated financial monitoring systems provided real-time access to banking transactions, investment activities, and regulatory compliance records that revealed patterns of business activity requiring enhanced federal oversight and scrutiny. The initial financial analysis uncovered a complex web of offshore investment partnerships and international business arrangements that had not been properly disclosed to federal regulatory agencies. Richard Whitfield's companies had established subsidiary operations in 3 different tax havens, creating financial structures that appeared designed to minimize federal tax obligations while obscuring the true scope of their international business activities. Marcus discovered that Whitfield Industries had failed to file required disclosure documents with the Treasury Department regarding several international partnerships that involved technology transfer agreements with foreign entities. The missing documentation represented potential violations of federal regulations governing international business activities and technology exports that could warrant formal investigation by multiple federal agencies. The financial investigation also revealed that Thomas's trust fund arrangements included investments in companies that had been flagged by federal agencies for potential sanctions violations. The discovery created immediate grounds for enhanced scrutiny of the family's international business relationships and compliance with federal regulations governing foreign investment and technology transfer. Marcus coordinated with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network to initiate formal review procedures that would require comprehensive disclosure of all international business activities and financial arrangements. The review process would create ongoing federal oversight that could affect their ability to conduct certain business activities while demonstrating the consequences of their systematic family disrespect. Agent Sarah Chen's FBI investigation focused on identifying potential criminal violations related to business fraud and regulatory compliance failures within Thomas's family business operations. The Bureau's sophisticated analytical capabilities provided access to investigative databases and surveillance resources that could reveal patterns of potentially illegal activity requiring federal prosecution. The criminal investigation discovered evidence of systematic bid rigging in several government contracting processes where Whitfield Industries had participated. The analysis revealed coordination between multiple companies to manipulate bidding, procedures for federal contracts, creating artificial pricing and eliminating legitimate competition in violation of federal antitrust laws. Sarah's investigation also uncovered potential tax fraud related to charitable deductions claimed by the Whitfield Family Foundation. The foundation had claimed substantial tax benefits for charitable contributions to organizations that appeared to exist primarily to provide tax advantages rather than genuine charitable services. The fraudulent charitable arrangements represented potential criminal violations that could result in federal prosecution and substantial financial penalties. The FBI analysis revealed additional evidence of insider trading activities related to Richard Whitfield's corporate board positions. The investigation identified multiple instances where family members had made investment decisions based on confidential corporate information that had not been publicly disclosed, creating illegal trading advantages that violated federal securities regulations. Sarah coordinated with federal prosecutors to initiate formal criminal investigation procedures that would require comprehensive disclosure of business activities and financial arrangements. The criminal investigation would create legal pressure that could result in federal prosecution and substantial penalties for violations of federal laws governing business activities and financial reporting. Dr. Jennifer Walsh's State Department investigation examined international business relationships and potential national security implications that warranted enhanced federal monitoring and security assessment. The Intelligence and Research Bureau's classified analytical capabilities provided access to international intelligence databases that could reveal security concerns related to foreign business partnerships. The international investigation discovered that Whitfield Industries had established business relationships with entities in countries that were subject to federal sanctions and export restrictions. The partnerships involved technology transfer, agreements that potentially violated federal regulations governing the export of sensitive technologies to restricted foreign entities. Jennifer's analysis revealed that several foreign business partners had connections to intelligence services and military organizations that created potential national security risks. The relationships warranted enhanced federal monitoring and could affect the family's ability to conduct international business activities or maintain security clearances for family members involved in sensitive business operations. The State Department investigation also identified potential violations of foreign agent registration requirements related to consulting agreements with international clients. The failure to properly register as foreign agents represented criminal violations that could result in federal prosecution and substantial penalties for family members involved in international business activities. Jennifer coordinated with federal security agencies to initiate enhanced monitoring procedures that would track international business activities and assess potential national security implications. The security investigation would create ongoing federal oversight that could affect their international travel and business operations while demonstrating the comprehensive scope of federal investigative capabilities. Agent David Rodriguez's Secret Service investigation analyzed social networks and communication patterns to identify security vulnerabilities and potential threats that warranted enhanced federal attention and protective intelligence monitoring. The service's sophisticated threat assessment capabilities provided insights into relationship dynamics that could affect security interests. The threat assessment investigation revealed that several individuals within Thomas's social network had been subjects of previous federal investigations related to potential security threats and criminal activities. The analysis identified patterns of association that created potential security risks and warranted enhanced monitoring of social activities and business relationships. David's investigation also uncovered evidence of communication with foreign nationals who had been flagged by federal agencies for potential intelligence activities and security concerns. The communications created potential security vulnerabilities that warranted enhanced federal monitoring and could affect security clearances for family members involved in sensitive business activities. The Secret Service analysis revealed additional concerns about social media activities and public statements that had attracted attention from federal agencies monitoring potential domestic security threats. The investigation identified patterns of behavior that warranted enhanced monitoring and could affect their ability to maintain certain business relationships and social activities. David coordinated with federal security agencies to implement enhanced monitoring procedures that would track social activities and assess potential security implications. The security investigation would create ongoing federal oversight that could affect their social and business activities while demonstrating the comprehensive scope of federal security capabilities. Agent Lisa Martinez's Treasury Inspector General. Investigation focused on regulatory compliance failures and business practices that warranted enhanced federal oversight and enforcement action. The Inspector General's comprehensive audit capabilities provided systematic analysis of compliance histories and regulatory violations that could result in substantial penalties and enhanced oversight. The compliance investigation discovered systematic failures to meet federal reporting requirements related to international business activities and financial arrangements. The analysis revealed patterns of non-compliance that had resulted in substantial underreporting of income and business activities to federal regulatory agencies. Lisa's investigation also identified potential violations of federal banking regulations related to international money transfers and investment activities. The violations represented serious compliance failures that could result in substantial financial penalties and enhanced federal oversight of business operations. The Treasury investigation revealed additional evidence of systematic tax avoidance, strategies that potentially violated federal regulations governing corporate tax obligations and international business reporting requirements. The investigation identified specific areas where enhanced federal oversight could create ongoing compliance obligations and financial pressure. Lisa coordinated with federal enforcement agencies to initiate formal compliance review procedures that would require comprehensive disclosure of business activities and financial arrangements. The compliance investigation would create ongoing federal oversight that could affect their business operations while ensuring sustained accountability for regulatory violations. The coordination of these 5 federal investigation tracks created immediate and comprehensive pressure that began affecting Thomas's family business operations and social positioning in ways they had never anticipated. The systematic approach to federal oversight demonstrated the strategic capabilities that Rebecca had completely failed to understand or appreciate when she chose to dismiss me as someone whose presence could be managed through seating arrangements and social marginalization. The first major demonstration of federal leverage occurred when Richard Whitfield received simultaneous notifications from 5 different federal agencies requesting comprehensive documentation of business activities, financial arrangements, and compliance histories. The coordinated federal attention created immediate recognition that their business operations were under systematic scrutiny that could affect their ability to maintain current operations and social positioning. Richard's initial response involved attempting to engage corporate attorneys to address what he characterized as routine federal inquiries that could be resolved through standard legal representation and compliance procedures. His efforts to minimize the significance of federal attention demonstrated his failure to understand the comprehensive scope of investigation that had been initiated across multiple agencies and enforcement mechanisms. The legal consultation process revealed that the coordinated nature of federal investigation created complex challenges that exceeded the capabilities of conventional business attorneys. The simultaneous investigation by Treasury, FBI, State Department, Secret Service, and Inspector General offices required specialized expertise in federal criminal law, national security regulations, and compliance enforcement that most corporate law firms were not equipped to provide. Thomas's family discovered that the coordinated federal investigation created immediate obstacles for their business operations and social activities. Banking institutions began implementing enhanced monitoring procedures that affected their ability to conduct certain financial transactions. International business partners expressed concerns about potential compliance risks that could affect ongoing contracts and partnership agreements. The federal investigation also created immediate consequences for their social positioning within New York's elite circles. Several business associates and social contacts began distancing themselves from relationships that could create potential liability or reputational risks if federal investigation revealed criminal violations or regulatory failures. The comprehensive federal response had generated recognition within Thomas's family that they were facing investigative scrutiny that extended far beyond their understanding or previous experience. The systematic nature of federal attention created sustained pressure that could not be resolved through conventional legal representation or social influence. Rebecca's reaction to these developments revealed her growing understanding that the sister she had dismissed as insignificant possessed capabilities that could create substantial consequences for her new family's business operations and social positioning. Her attempts to contact me directly demonstrated her recognition that family relationships carried implications she had never considered when planning her wedding celebration and social positioning strategies. The conversation with Rebecca provided an opportunity to demonstrate the systematic nature of the federal investigation while maintaining the composed professionalism that had characterized my approach throughout this strategic response. Her request for explanation and assistance revealed her failure to understand that the federal investigation represented consequences for systematic family disrespect rather than random bureaucratic attention. Rebecca's efforts to characterize the federal investigation as a misunderstanding that could be resolved through family negotiation demonstrated her complete failure to comprehend the scope of resources and capabilities that had been applied to addressing her dismissive behavior and social manipulation. The conversation also revealed that Thomas's family had begun questioning Rebecca about potential connections between federal investigation and family relationships that might have created security concerns or compliance risks. Their concerns about her background and family associations demonstrated the cascading effects of federal attention on social relationships and business activities. Rebecca's attempts to minimize her family connections while maintaining her position within Thomas's social circle created additional pressure as she struggled to balance conflicting loyalties and strategic considerations. The federal investigation had transformed family relationships from social obligations into potential liabilities that could affect her standing within the exclusive circles she had worked to join. The initial implementation phase was producing measurable results across multiple dimensions of the strategic framework. Federal investigation was creating sustained pressure on business operations and compliance requirements. Social relationships were being affected by concerns about potential legal and regulatory risks. Family dynamics were shifting as Rebecca recognized the consequences of systematic disrespect and social dismissiveness. But perhaps most importantly, the initial federal response was demonstrating that the quiet sister who had been relegated to supervising children possessed strategic capabilities and federal resources that could create comprehensive accountability for systematic family disrespect and social manipulation. The education process had commenced with dramatic effectiveness. The lessons about respect, consequences, and strategic capabilities were producing immediate behavioral modifications while establishing foundations for sustained accountability and relationship restructuring that would ensure lasting consequences for their systematic underestimation of family capabilities and federal resources. The fourth week of strategic implementation marked a critical escalation phase where the coordinated federal investigations began generating exponential pressure that extended far beyond the immediate scope of regulatory compliance into areas of criminal liability and national security concerns that would fundamentally alter Thomas's family business operations and social positioning within New York's elite circles. The systematic federal attention I had orchestrated was creating ripple effects throughout their professional networks, generating momentum that no longer required direct intervention to maintain effectiveness. The education process for Rebecca and Thomas's family was producing permanent behavioral modifications while creating opportunities for my own professional advancement that exceeded anything that could have been achieved through maintaining relationships built on systematic disrespect and social dismissiveness. Agent Marcus Thompson reported breakthrough developments in the financial crimes investigation that revealed the full scope of systematic tax avoidance and regulatory violations that had characterized Richard Whitfield's business operations for over a decade. The Treasury Department's comprehensive analysis had uncovered evidence of criminal conspiracy to defraud federal agencies through sophisticated offshore financial arrangements and deliberately misleading regulatory filings. The forensic accounting. Investigation revealed that Whitfield Industries had systematically underreported income through a complex network of shell companies and foreign partnerships designed to obscure the true scope of their business activities from federal oversight. The scheme had resulted in over $15 million in unpaid federal taxes, while creating fraudulent charitable deductions that provided additional illegal tax benefits. Marcus discovered that the offshore financial arrangements included partnerships with entities in countries known for facilitating money laundering and tax evasion schemes. The international connections created potential violations of federal banking regulations and anti-money laundering statutes that warranted criminal prosecution and asset forfeiture procedures. The financial investigation also revealed systematic violations of federal securities regulations through insider trading activities that had generated substantial illegal profits for family members and business associates. The trading violations represented criminal activities that could result in federal prosecution and substantial financial penalties, including asset forfeiture and restitution requirements. The Treasury Department had coordinated with the Internal Revenue Service to initiate formal criminal investigation procedures that would result in federal grand jury proceedings and potential criminal indictments. The criminal tax investigation would create sustained legal pressure that could result in substantial prison sentences and financial penalties that would fundamentally alter the family's business operations and social positioning. Agent Sarah Chen's FBI investigation had expanded to include racketeering charges related to systematic bid rigging and government contract fraud that had affected multiple federal agencies and resulted in substantial financial losses for taxpayers. The criminal conspiracy involved coordination between multiple companies to manipulate government contracting processes while eliminating legitimate competition through illegal agreements and fraudulent bidding procedures. The FBI's comprehensive investigation revealed that the bid rigging scheme had been operating for over 8 years and had affected government contracts worth over $50 million. The systematic nature of the fraud demonstrated criminal intent and coordination that warranted prosecution under federal racketeering statutes, with potential prison sentences exceeding 20 years for key participants. Sarah's investigation also uncovered evidence of systematic bribery and corruption involving federal officials who had received illegal payments in exchange for favorable treatment in government contracting processes. The corruption investigation had expanded to include multiple federal agencies and political figures whose involvement created additional criminal liability and national security concerns. The FBI had coordinated with federal prosecutors to initiate grand jury proceedings that would result in criminal indictments for multiple family members and business associates. The criminal investigation would create comprehensive legal pressure that could result in substantial prison sentences and asset forfeiture that would eliminate their ability to maintain current business operations and social positioning. Dr. Jennifer Walsh's State Department investigation had revealed connections to foreign intelligence services and potential espionage activities that warranted classification as threats to national security, requiring enhanced federal monitoring and counterintelligence operations. The international business relationships included partnerships with entities that had been identified as front organizations for foreign intelligence services seeking access to sensitive American technologies and business information. The National Security investigation discovered that Whitfield Industries had provided sensitive technology information to foreign partners without proper federal authorization or security clearances. The unauthorized technology transfer represented potential violations of espionage statutes and export control regulations that could result in federal prosecution and substantial prison sentences. Jennifer's investigation also revealed that several family members had been recruited by foreign intelligence services to provide information about American business activities and government contracting processes. The recruitment activities represented potential treason and espionage charges that could result in life imprisonment and complete elimination of their business operations and social positioning. The State Department had coordinated with federal counterintelligence agencies to initiate comprehensive security investigations that would monitor all international communications and business activities. The national security investigation would create permanent federal oversight that would fundamentally alter their ability to conduct international business activities while demonstrating the comprehensive scope of federal security capabilities. Agent David Rodriguez's Secret Service investigation had identified multiple credible threats against federal officials that appeared to be connected to Thomas's family business activities and social relationships. The threat assessment revealed communications and financial arrangements that suggested potential involvement in domestic terrorism activities and political violence that warranted enhanced federal protection and counterterrorism operations. The Secret Service investigation discovered that several individuals within Thomas's social network had been involved in planning and financing activities designed to intimidate federal officials and interfere with government operations. The domestic terrorism connections created immediate security concerns that warranted enhanced protection for federal officials and comprehensive investigation of potential terrorist networks. David's investigation also revealed communications that suggested potential assassination plots against federal judges and prosecutors who had been involved in investigating business fraud and corruption cases. The assassination planning represented capital crimes that could result in federal prosecution and death penalty charges for participants. The Secret Service had coordinated with federal counterterrorism agencies to initiate comprehensive security operations that would monitor all communications and activities while providing enhanced protection for federal officials. The domestic terrorism investigation would create permanent federal surveillance that would eliminate their ability to maintain normal business and social activities. Agent Lisa Martinez's Treasury Inspector General investigation had documented systematic corruption and fraud that had resulted in substantial financial losses for federal agencies, while creating criminal liability for multiple government officials who had received illegal payments and benefits. The compliance investigation revealed evidence of criminal conspiracy that extended throughout multiple federal agencies and political organizations. The Inspector General investigation discovered that the corruption scheme had affected federal contracting processes worth over $100 million while creating illegal benefits for political figures and government officials. The systematic nature of the corruption demonstrated criminal intent and coordination that warranted prosecution under federal racketeering and corruption statutes. Lisa's investigation also revealed evidence of systematic fraud in federal grant programs and tax credit schemes that had resulted in substantial illegal benefits for the Whitfield family business operations. The grant fraud represented criminal activities that could result in federal prosecution and substantial financial penalties, including complete restitution and asset forfeiture. The Treasury Inspector General had coordinated with federal prosecutors to initiate comprehensive criminal investigation procedures that would result in federal grand jury proceedings and criminal indictments. The corruption investigation would create sustained legal pressure that could result in substantial prison sentences and financial penalties that would eliminate their ability to maintain current business operations. The coordination of these 5 federal investigation tracks had created exponential pressure that was generating cascading consequences throughout Thomas's family business operations and social networks. The systematic federal attention was creating comprehensive accountability that addressed every dimension of their business activities while demonstrating the strategic capabilities that Rebecca had never understood or anticipated. The most significant development during this escalation phase was the emergence of federal asset forfeiture procedures that would seize substantial portions of the Whitfield family wealth while creating permanent government oversight of their remaining business operations. The criminal investigations had provided sufficient evidence to initiate comprehensive asset forfeiture that would fundamentally alter their financial position and social status. The asset forfeiture procedures included seizure of multiple real estate properties, investment accounts, and business assets that represented the proceeds of criminal activities and regulatory violations. The federal seizures would eliminate their ability to maintain their current lifestyle while creating substantial financial pressure that would affect their social positioning within New York's elite circles. The federal investigations had also generated media attention that was creating additional pressure on their business relationships and social connections. Several major business partners had terminated contracts and partnership agreements due to concerns about potential criminal liability and reputational risks associated with continued relationships. The media coverage included detailed reporting about the scope of federal investigations and potential criminal charges that had attracted attention from investigative journalists and business publications. The negative publicity was creating sustained reputational damage that would affect their ability to maintain business relationships and social positioning regardless of the ultimate outcomes of criminal proceedings. Thomas's social network within New York's elite circles was responding to the federal investigations with systematic distancing and relationship termination that reflected their concerns about potential association with criminal activities and regulatory violations. The exclusive social clubs, charitable organizations, and business associations that had provided their social foundation were implementing policies that excluded individuals under federal investigation. Rebecca's position within these exclusive social circles was becoming increasingly precarious as Thomas's family faced comprehensive federal investigation and potential criminal prosecution. Her efforts to maintain social relationships while distancing herself from family criminal activities created additional pressure as she struggled to balance conflicting loyalties and strategic considerations. The exclusive private schools, cultural institutions, and charitable organizations that had welcomed Rebecca during her engagement were now questioning her background and family associations. The social institutions that had provided access to New York's elite circles were implementing enhanced screening procedures that could affect her continued participation in their activities. Rebecca's attempts to minimize her family connections, while maintaining her position within Thomas's social circle, were creating additional scrutiny from federal investigators who were analyzing all family relationships and potential criminal associations. Her efforts to distance herself from federal investigations while maintaining family relationships created potential obstruction of justice charges that could result in criminal prosecution. The comprehensive federal response had also created opportunities for my own professional advancement within the federal security apparatus. The systematic approach to addressing family disrespect through legitimate federal channels had generated recognition from senior officials who appreciated sophisticated strategic thinking and comprehensive coordination capabilities. The successful coordination of multiple federal agencies and investigation tracks had demonstrated leadership capabilities and analytical thinking that qualified me for advancement opportunities within the Secret Service and broader federal security community. The strategic planning and operational coordination had established my reputation as someone capable of managing complex operations while maintaining operational security and compliance with federal guidelines. Several senior officials within the Treasury Department and Secret Service had extended invitations for expanded responsibilities and leadership roles that would provide access to higher-level strategic planning and national security operations. The advancement opportunities reflected recognition that my analytical capabilities and coordination skills met the requirements for senior leadership positions within the federal security apparatus. The professional recognition was also creating opportunities for specialized assignments and consulting roles that would establish my expertise in strategic coordination and federal investigation management. The systematic approach to addressing family disrespect had demonstrated capabilities that could be applied to addressing complex national security challenges and federal coordination requirements. The transformation from dismissed family member to recognized federal leader was accelerating through the successful application of strategic thinking and systematic coordination that had converted personal disrespect into comprehensive federal accountability measures. The quiet sister who had been relegated to supervising children had demonstrated professional capabilities that commanded respect and created opportunities for significant advancement within federal security organizations. The escalation phase had achieved comprehensive results that exceeded every initial strategic objective while creating sustainable pressure that would ensure lasting consequences for systematic family disrespect and social dismissiveness. The federal investigations were producing permanent changes in their business operations and social positioning while creating opportunities for my continued advancement within federal security leadership roles. The education process was producing permanent behavioral modifications while demonstrating the comprehensive scope of federal capabilities that could be applied to addressing systematic disrespect and family dismissiveness. The lessons about consequences and strategic capabilities would ensure lasting changes in family dynamics, while establishing my position as someone whose professional capabilities commanded recognition and respect within federal security organizations. The sixth week of strategic implementation culminated in a series of decisive confrontations that demonstrated the comprehensive scope of consequences that systematic family disrespect could generate when addressed through sophisticated federal coordination and strategic planning. The cascading pressure I had orchestrated had reached a critical threshold where Thomas's family could no longer maintain their previous assumptions about controlling outcomes or minimizing accountability for their business practices and social manipulation. The federal investigations had achieved sufficient momentum to become self-sustaining through organic law enforcement processes and judicial proceedings that would continue generating consequences regardless of my direct involvement. The education process for Rebecca and Thomas's family was producing permanent behavioral modifications while establishing my position as someone whose professional capabilities commanded recognition and respect within the highest levels of federal security leadership. The first major confrontation occurred when federal agents executed simultaneous search warrants at 7 different locations associated with Whitfield Industries and family business operations. The coordinated federal raids represented the culmination of comprehensive criminal investigations that had documented systematic violations of federal laws governing taxation, securities regulations, international business activities, and national security requirements. The search warrant execution involved over 40 federal agents from multiple agencies working in coordination to secure evidence of criminal activities that had been identified through months of systematic investigation and surveillance. The simultaneous raids demonstrated the comprehensive scope of federal attention while ensuring that evidence could not be destroyed or concealed through defensive measures. Richard Whitfield's primary residence was searched by FBI agents who seized computers, financial records, and communication devices that contained evidence of criminal conspiracy and regulatory violations. The search revealed hidden safes containing cash, foreign currency, and encrypted storage devices that suggested systematic efforts to conceal assets and communications from federal oversight. The Whitfield Industries corporate headquarters was simultaneously searched by Treasury agents who seized financial records, tax documents, and international business agreements that provided evidence of systematic tax fraud and regulatory violations. The corporate search revealed extensive documentation of offshore financial arrangements and fraudulent accounting practices that had been concealed from federal agencies. Thomas and Rebecca's Manhattan penthouse was searched by Secret Service agents who discovered communications equipment and encrypted devices that suggested involvement in activities requiring enhanced federal monitoring and counterintelligence operations. The residential search revealed evidence of international communications and foreign business relationships that warranted national security investigation. The coordinated federal raids generated immediate media attention that created additional pressure on their business relationships and social positioning within New York's elite circles. The dramatic nature of federal law enforcement operations provided visual confirmation of the serious criminal allegations while demonstrating the comprehensive scope of federal investigation and prosecution efforts. The search warrant executions also resulted in the immediate arrest of Richard Whitfield on federal charges including tax evasion, securities fraud, racketeering, and violations of national security regulations. The arrest represented the beginning of federal criminal prosecution that could result in substantial prison sentences and complete elimination of their business operations and social positioning. Thomas was arrested simultaneously on charges of conspiracy, money laundering, and violations of foreign agent registration requirements that carried potential prison sentences exceeding 15 years. The arrest demonstrated that federal investigation had progressed beyond regulatory compliance into areas of serious criminal liability that would fundamentally alter their personal and professional circumstances. Rebecca's reaction to these developments provided the second major confrontation as she attempted to negotiate family intervention to address what she characterized as a massive federal overreach that was destroying innocent people through bureaucratic harassment and political persecution. Her communications revealed complete failure to understand that the federal investigation represented consequences for systematic criminal activities rather than random government attention. The conversation with Rebecca took place in a secure, federal facility where she had been brought for questioning about her knowledge of family business activities and potential involvement in criminal conspiracy. The federal interview provided an opportunity to demonstrate the systematic nature of the criminal investigation, while maintaining the composed professionalism that had characterized my approach throughout this strategic response. Rebecca's attempts to characterize the federal criminal charges as misunderstandings that could be resolved through family negotiation demonstrated her profound failure to comprehend the scope of criminal liability that had been documented through comprehensive federal investigation. Her requests for family assistance revealed her expectation that I would prioritize family loyalty over federal law enforcement and national security requirements. The conversation provided an opportunity to explain that federal criminal investigation represented the natural consequences of systematic disrespect and social manipulation that had revealed character failures extending far beyond family relationships into areas of criminal behavior and national security violations. The comprehensive federal response demonstrated that respect and integrity were not optional elements of personal relationships, but essential requirements that carried serious consequences when violated through systematic deception and criminal activities. The third major confrontation occurred when Thomas's business associates and social contacts began implementing systematic distancing procedures to minimize their exposure to potential criminal liability and reputational damage. The exclusive social network that had provided their foundation for elite positioning was responding to federal investigation with protective measures that eliminated their access to business opportunities and social recognition. The Metropolitan Club of New York revoked Thomas's family membership and implemented policies excluding individuals under federal criminal investigation from club facilities and social activities. The membership revocation represented loss of access to networking opportunities and social recognition that had been essential elements of their elite positioning within New York's business community. Several major corporations terminated business relationships and partnership agreements with Whitfield Industries due to concerns about potential criminal liability and reputational risks associated with continued association. The business relationship terminations eliminated substantial revenue streams while creating additional financial pressure that compounded the effects of federal asset forfeiture and criminal prosecution. The systematic social and business exclusions created comprehensive isolation that demonstrated how federal criminal investigation could eliminate access to the exclusive networks and opportunities that had provided their social foundation. The consequences extended far beyond legal proceedings into permanent changes in social positioning and business capabilities. The fourth confrontation involved comprehensive asset forfeiture procedures that seized the majority of Whitfield family wealth while creating permanent federal oversight of their remaining financial resources. The federal asset seizures included their primary residence in Manhattan, vacation properties in the Hamptons and Aspen, investment portfolios worth over $30 million, and business assets representing the core operations of Whitfield Industries. The comprehensive asset forfeiture created immediate financial crisis that affected their ability to maintain legal representation, residential arrangements, and basic living expenses. The financial pressure demonstrated how federal investigation could eliminate the economic foundations that had supported their business operations and social positioning. federal prosecutors announced their intention to pursue maximum prison sentences under federal sentencing guidelines that reflected the systematic nature of criminal activities and the substantial harm caused to federal agencies and national security interests. Richard Whitfield faced potential prison sentences exceeding 30 years, while Thomas faced over 20 years for his role in the criminal conspiracy. But the most profound transformation emerged from the recognition within federal security leadership that my strategic coordination and analytical capabilities qualified me for advancement to senior leadership positions within the national security apparatus. The successful management of complex federal investigations and coordination of multiple agency operations had demonstrated expertise that was valued by senior officials responsible for national security planning and strategic coordination. The director of the Secret Service formally offered my advancement to the Deputy Assistant Director position, responsible for strategic planning and coordination of protective operations for senior government officials. The promotion provided access to the highest levels of federal security planning while establishing my position among the senior leadership responsible for national security operations. The Treasury Secretary requested my participation in strategic planning committees, responsible for coordinating federal financial investigations and enforcement operations. The appointment provided influence over federal policy development while creating opportunities for shaping investigative priorities and coordination procedures. These advancement opportunities reflected recognition that the systematic approach I had developed for addressing family disrespect through legitimate federal channels demonstrated capabilities that could be applied to addressing complex national security challenges and federal coordination requirements at the highest levels of government. 6 months after Rebecca's wedding, I found myself seated in the director's conference room at Secret Service headquarters, briefing senior officials on strategic coordination protocols for multi-agency operations. The woman who had been relegated to the children's table was now providing guidance to some of the most powerful figures in federal law enforcement and national security. The irony was not lost on me as I reviewed intelligence reports and coordinated protection details for cabinet-level officials. The quiet competence that my family had dismissed as insignificance was now recognized as genuine expertise that shaped federal policy and operational decisions affecting national security. Rebecca's attempts to rebuild her social position had largely failed, as the criminal convictions and asset forfeitures eliminated her access to the elite circles she had worked so desperately to join. Her marriage to Thomas survived the federal prosecutions, but their reduced circumstances forced them to relocate to a modest apartment in Queens, far from the Manhattan penthouse and Hamptons estate that had defined their previous lifestyle. The exclusive social clubs and charitable organizations that had welcomed Rebecca during her engagement now treated her as a liability whose association could create reputational risks for their membership. The transformation from aspiring socialite to social pariah demonstrated how quickly elite status could disappear when built on foundations of criminal activity and systematic deception. Thomas's federal conviction resulted in an 8-year prison sentence that eliminated his ability to maintain the business relationships and social connections that had provided their elite positioning. The conviction also included lifetime restrictions on certain business activities and ongoing federal monitoring that would affect his future opportunities and social rehabilitation. Richard Whitfield received a 25-year federal sentence that effectively ended his business career, while creating permanent forfeiture of assets that had supported the family's generational wealth and social influence. The comprehensive federal prosecution established precedent for addressing systematic white-collar crime, while demonstrating the long-term consequences of underestimating federal investigative capabilities. The family's complete transformation from elite social positioning to criminal conviction and social isolation provided comprehensive education about the consequences of systematic disrespect and the dangers of underestimating individuals whose capabilities extended far beyond conventional understanding and social assumptions. But perhaps the most significant outcome was my own professional transformation, from dismissed family member to senior federal security leader whose expertise was valued at the highest levels of government. The strategic thinking and coordination Capabilities that had been overlooked by family members were now recognized as essential assets for national security operations and federal policy development. The promotion to Deputy Assistant Director included responsibility for coordinating protection operations for international diplomatic events, strategic planning for emerging security threats, and liaison activities with foreign security services that required sophisticated analytical thinking and operational coordination capabilities. The position also provided opportunities for policy development and strategic planning that would influence federal security operations for years to come. The advancement represented validation that professional capabilities and strategic thinking could create extraordinary opportunities for those who demonstrated competence and integrity under challenging circumstances. The speaking engagements I began accepting at federal law enforcement conferences and security policy forums established my reputation as a thought leader in strategic coordination and multi-agency operations. The presentations provided platforms for sharing analytical frameworks and coordination methodologies while building relationships with senior officials throughout the federal security apparatus. The recognition within federal security circles had also generated opportunities for consulting roles with international security organizations and private sector firms that required expertise in strategic planning and federal coordination capabilities. The consulting opportunities provided additional income while establishing my credentials as a recognized expert in complex security operations. The transformation was complete. The woman who had been systematically dismissed and relegated to supervising children at family gatherings had established herself as a respected leader, whose expertise commanded recognition from the most senior officials within the federal security apparatus. The quiet sister who had been treated as an insignificant presence, whose concerns could be dismissed through seating arrangements and social marginalization, had demonstrated that professional capabilities and strategic thinking could create comprehensive accountability for systematic disrespect, while generating extraordinary opportunities for personal advancement and meaningful contribution to national security. The education process had produced permanent lessons about respect, consequences, and the dangers of underestimating individuals whose capabilities extended far beyond surface appearances and social assumptions. The systematic approach to addressing family betrayal through legitimate federal channels had created lasting changes in relationship dynamics, while establishing foundations for continued success and recognition within the highest levels of government service. Rebecca's wedding celebration, which had been designed to establish her position within New York's elite social circles, had ultimately become the catalyst for comprehensive federal investigation that eliminated their criminal activities while creating opportunities for my advancement to senior federal leadership. The seating arrangement that had been intended to marginalize my presence had provided the motivation for demonstrating capabilities that exceeded their comprehension and created consequences that would affect their lives permanently. The story, that began with systematic family disrespect and social dismissiveness, had concluded with comprehensive accountability and professional recognition that established new foundations for personal fulfillment and meaningful contribution to federal security operations. The transformation demonstrated that strategic thinking, professional competence, and systematic coordination could convert devastating personal circumstances into opportunities for extraordinary achievement and lasting influence within the most important areas of government service. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.